6. It is written, Cast thy bread upon the waters, and it shall return to thee after many days. Therefore we forsook our homes, and left our possessions behind us, and we went with our rabbi in an unknown land, as the text saith, With the kindness of thy youth thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown. And we believed in God, and our hope was not deceived. And our rabbi said unto us, Let us arise and go to Nazareth, the city of my home, for we are near unto the place. And we took our sacks with bread, our provision for the way, and 1 or 2 garments in honor of our rabbi. And before our rabbi left the city, he blessed the watchmen of the vineyard, saying, Woe unto those who declare unclean that which God hath purified. Mattathias, thou art our brother in Israel. Be comforted. The law is not strong in thy hand, but the law of God is in thy heart and in thy meekness of spirit. And he left the place, and went forth before us, and we his disciples followed after him. And the peace of God was poured out on the fields wherethrough we passed. And as our rabbi perceived that the peace of God lay on the world, he became joyous, and the glory rested upon him, for the glory cometh to rest only where there is joy. And he told us many parables, and many good words, which tied our hearts to our Father in heaven. Many of them the disciples learned by heart, that they might remember them for future generations, that they too might hear and learn the moral thereof. But many of them were lost. And in the warmth of the day we came to the edge of the valley, whence the road ascendeth by the hills. And when we came upon the hill, we encountered shepherds which pastured their flocks there. And the shepherds knew our rabbi, for he had often come out to them what time he still dwelt in the city of Nazareth. And the sheep surrounded him, and licked his feet with their tongues, for they knew him again. And there came up in the sky a little black cloud, no bigger than a man's hand, and the hand opened, and enclosed the heavens, and the heavens were laden with clouds, which concealed the light of the sun. And shadows passed over the face of the earth, and spread darkness around. And one of the disciples said, Let us hide ourselves in a cave, or take shelter under yonder stone, for a storm of rain is about to pass. For it was the time of the latter rain, and the latter rain cometh always with wind and storm. But our rabbi said, Where wilt thou hide thyself from God? In the heart of the stone he will find thee, and in the cave he will seek thee out, and the most secure place is under God's heavens. Consider the sheep, and learn from them. They seek not a cave, nor do they take shelter under a stone, but they deliver their bodies to the compassion of God. Behold how in the time of storm they do not hide one from the other, but they come together, and they put their heads near each other. So deliver your bodies to the compassion of God, and put your trust in your shepherd, that he will come at the right time and save you. And as he spoke, the storm wind came, and seized upon the 4 pillars of the earth, and there went past a great noise and shouting, with thunder and lightning, and the wind combed with combs all the grasses and growths of the fields, and bent their crowns to the earth, once this way and once that way, and the wind came among the branches, and thought to break them. And then the storm was released in a downpour, and we sought shelter, each one where he could, and the shepherds did likewise. And the flock of sheep made a circle about our rabbi, and pressed to his feet, as if they sought shelter in him, for their shepherd had forsaken them. And as they stood thus on the slope of the hill, the storm wind returned, and it seized on one or two of the lambs that were on the edge of the fold. And the lambs were lifted up in the teeth of the wind, as it were in the teeth of a wild beast, and they clung with their feet to clefts of the rock. But the teeth of the storm wind were stronger than the feet of the lambs, and the wind lifted them in anger, and flung them down the slope of the hill into the abyss. And it was so that when the lambs were carried toward the abyss, they called to the shepherd with the cry of animals. But the shepherd heard not the cry of the falling lambs, for he had hidden himself from the anger of the wind in a stone cave. And when the rain ceased, we sought our rabbi, and we could not find him. For each one of us had found himself a hiding place from the storm wind under the shelter of a stone or in a cave, and we had not seen that our rabbi was gone down into the abyss after the fallen lambs. And we sought him here and there, and found him not. We called, "Rabbi, Rabbi," and he did not answer us. Then, when a while had passed, we saw our rabbi coming up out of the abyss, and his garment was steeped in rain, and the water ran over his feet, and his hair and his face were wet. His feet were bare, and they bled from having been dashed against the stones. And he carried a lamb on his shoulders, and he returned it to the flock. And when we beheld him, how he came up from the abyss with the lamb on his shoulders, we became ashamed before him, and we remembered our forefathers, who had also been shepherds, all of them. And I learned by meditation on my rabbi now what the sages had learned of Moses. And Moses was a shepherd, which meaneth that God first taught and tested Moses through sheep, so our sages say. When Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro in the wilderness, one sheep fled from the flock, and Moses followed after it, and the sheep fled until it came to a place of shelter. And when it came into this place of shelter, God sent a spring of water, and the sheep stood there and drank thereof. And when Moses came near to the sheep, he thought in his heart, I knew that thou fleddest from the flock, because thou wert thirsty. But now, belike, thou art tired too. And he took the sheep on his shoulders, and went back with it. And God said unto Moses, Thou hast compassion enough to feed the sheep. I swear unto thee, thou shalt feed the sheep of Israel. And now God sent the sun forth from his hiding place, and the clouds fled before the sun. And we sat down on the stones of the hill, and we took off our clothes to dry them. And as our rabbi sat upon the stone, drying his garment, the sheep came to him, and lay down at his feet. And we were a Sabbath walk distant from the city of Cana, where our rabbi had shown his first miracle, having changed the water into wine at the wedding of some poor folk. Notwithstanding, we went not into the city, for it was the 5th day, and our rabbi had said that he would come to his city, which is Nazareth, to celebrate the Sabbath there, and to fulfill the commandment to do honor unto his mother. And his father was then not alive. And we rose, and we went along the road, and as the sun was setting, we came to the gate of the city. Now this city resteth, even as it were a child on the back of a camel, between 2 hills, and the name of it is Nazareth, and it lies on the road which goeth from the coast of the great sea to Damascus. And the inhabitants of the city sustain themselves with the labor of the field and with carpentry, for the roads go through the city to Damascus. And our rabbi too was a carpenter, and the son of a carpenter. But there are no sages and learned men in Nazareth, save for the head of the synagogues and the chief men thereof, who are likewise the judges of the court. Now, when we came nigh to the gate of the city, the sun had set, and it was the time of the evening prayer. Therefore we stood in the middle of the field, and in the silence of evening, when the stars had begun to shine over the hills and valleys, and our rabbi said, Hear, O Israel, and he said unto us, It is not good that we should all enter together into the city, for the place is small, and its inhabitants are of the simple people, and when they will see a rabbi with his disciples, they will be affrighted. Therefore, let each one go his own way, and find his night's lodgment, and when it is morning, let us meet in the house of my mother, that we may there sanctify the Sabbath, and fulfill the commandment of honor to mothers. And the rabbi took with him only Simon Bar-Jonah, and the sons of Zebedee, Jacob and Jochanan, who were his most beloved disciples, and Miriam, the woman that had followed after us. For the other souls which he had made in Naim, to wit, Jochanan and Susanna, had remained there, that they might go to Capharnaum, to the mother-in-law of Simon, where the rabbi abode. And when I saw that the rabbi was leaving us, I strengthened myself, and stood before him, and entreated, It is written, Thine eyes shall behold the King in his beauty. And who is a greater king than the rabbi? Now let us come with thee to the house of thy mother, that we may see how thou fulfillest the commandment of honor to thy mother, and learn therefrom. And the rabbi consented thereto. And the house of my rabbi's mother stood by the way as thou comest out of the city, where the wayfarers pass and the wagons travel, so that she might be the first to fulfill the commandment of receiving travelers when a stranger came into the city. For my rabbi's mother was a God-fearing woman. And when we had passed through the narrow streets, we came into the open field beyond, and near the foot of the hill we beheld a light shining through the opening of a door, and the rabbi said unto us, That is the house of my mother.